What's up, everybody? I believe we're live. Jeff and Control Robinson here, your host of The Pylon Show, joined by my co-host, as always, my sidekick in crime, the guy that I split between Tasteless. It is Artosis himself. How you doing, buddy?
A rough week, but yeah. I'm happy to be here. It's
good to be here.
Show today.
We're going to talk about some StarCraft, hang out with some good people. Speaking of good people, we've got two guests this week. We have Nathanias coming right out of, it looks like the early 1990s teen bop era.
Yep.
But then there's a mug of his own urine. That's incredible. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Is that
a frosty mug? Yeah.
It's a frosted mug, yeah.
Damn, and someone just brought you a sandwich, too.
Kansas
and beans.
Hospitality.
This guy, only a day and a half ago, was tweeting about how stressed he is and how terrible time he's having. And now I'm looking at him with a frosted mug of beer and a sandwich and beans.
You know, it's also been a rough week, but there's nothing that really hits the spot quite like a cold one.
Cold what, though? Like hot dog, or?
There's the first singer.
I don't have a response to that.
Cold hot dog. And then our other guest this week is Mr. Businessman himself, Mr. Katz. Katz, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing great, dude. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you, man.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be doing it. I guess kind of the show flow for you guys. We do have some awesome topics. I can kind of some of the limelights are we're gonna revisit last week's subject and talk to Nathanias about his career as a caster and his path to getting there. And then I pulled Katz on here because I want to talk to him. Because Katz doesn't get enough credit for this, but I think it's super interesting. He's one of the business people of StarCraft and really in esports. He had a team, or has a team. He's got a bunch of different projects and stuff like that, so I want to talk to him about that. And then we have some other subjects as well that we'll get to. And then, of course, there's the Q&A at the end, which I have to fix the sins of the first week and constantly remind you guys, make sure and ask those questions in the Discord. So I'm saying this right now, but everyone join me in watching the 500 people who are going to post questions in the Twitch chat. And I'm going to ignore it. Kind of. You know I'm reading it, and it hurts me. It hurts me every time. So please, if you have questions, go to the Pylon Discord. Ask them in the appropriate thread. And we'll go from there. But, as always, we're going to start off with what's happening in StarCraft this week. And we've got some stuff here. I don't think I have it in front of me, though. There's a couple things. So Rifkin in chat is doing the BTSL, if that's the correct acronym.
Yeah.
You guys have that. He's casting that, and it's with Rapid. And who's the other commentator? Does someone see that?
I do not know.
This shit show's already began. I love it. Yeah, that's the one thing we didn't have organized in front of us, is we didn't pull that aside, because I was supposed to look in. I'm going to just look in the actual thread itself.
We just have to make enough banter until someone types it in chat and then pretend like.
Let's just all quietly stare at Jeff.
I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it.
Just be quiet. That's what I want. You guys, you don't even know that's my trap. That's what I want. Rifkin. Well, I'll start with the one that I see here. Cyan is doing something. He's doing a Filthy Rake interview this Friday at 3 p.m. PST. Which is minus 2.5 hours from this time from a Eurobros. Filthy Rake's an interesting character. He has done a lot of stuff, kind of a little bit of a Katz, if you will. I hope Katz doesn't take too much offense. A business guy in StarCraft 2. So Cyan's doing an interview with him. Yeah, we gotta organize this way better. This is on me, though. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay, I still love you.
Oh, as long as I have that. Rifkin and his gang is also selling portraits, by the way. They're doing that to help supplement something.
And it's actually, the portraits are the casters for the BTSL, and that's Warty, Zombie Grab, Maynard, and Warty. Wait, I listed Warty twice, that's on him.
Does anyone else think that Katz should be the new host of the Pylon Show? Is that in-game portraits?
Yes.
Oh, sick.
Well, certainly Katz over Artosis, who's not helping me at fucking all right now. But I'm the brave soul is trying.
I spent an hour organizing the Gauntlet Warty drama for us. Okay, so like I've done my part.
Did you do like that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme where it's like everything's all written on the walls and you've got all the little strings leading to each other? Like this is where Warty screwed over Element. This is where this guy did that.
Yeah. This is where he calls him a basement caller. We'll get into that later. But I've done my part.
All right.
Please continue.
No, I'm gonna just take this one on the chin, guys. I am supposed to organize this a little bit better. I told Cobra that we're doing a super casual episode again because he's coming back. We've had some, it's just we just want to do a simple episode. So I apologize to those that reached out to me and were like, "Hey, talk about this." I should have organized that. That's on me. But do check out the BTSL, which I believe is this coming weekend. Rifkin has it on his Twitter as well as BaseTradeTV. It's a pretty big deal, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff with it, and they put out great content. I just wish I had the time right in front of me.
Yeah. They're doing it's a pretty cool thing. I just want to say, like, the portraits, I think it's like $5, and it also goes to the prize pool of the tournament, I think, as well. So
that's great that Blizzard's doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love to just add to my little StarCraft collection in the game.
You and Nate, I think Nate is the other guy that said he has to have everything, which I really like.
Yeah.
It's next weekend, not this weekend. Next weekend.
Now the one thing that I absolutely don't have is the 20-year anniversary skin, because I tried to put it on my phone while I was doing the event and it didn't work, so I don't have that.
Yeah, I can't afford to buy everything.
Have you really not been able to get someone to fix that for you?
Interesting. Okay, well, we're gonna. So again, that's my fault. Base Trade, please. I see you in the chat. Fucking advertise it so I can repeat it here on the microphone. You're not doing it, but we're just gonna jump into subjects here, and I will do a better job in the following weeks of that part of the show, which I still think is good. So if, like I said, if Base Trade or somebody can post in the chat, I will break the character and talk about it right away. But I want to start off with our first subject, which is revisiting last week. We're not going to make a Nation Wars of this where we invite someone one at a time and talk about every week. But Nate did have to cancel last week for personal reasons, and now we have him here. And I do think it's one of the interesting, cool stories of the scene is talking to some of these guys and how they became a caster. So Nate, you don't have to necessarily give us a line by line of like how it came to be, but to just kind of, this is what I'd kind of like from you, and to start the conversation, I want to hear a little bit of like what your motivation was to get into it, why you were kind of even doing it. And then for me, as a guy that knows your story for the most part, you put in a Herculean effort and like went through a lot to do it. So I kind of want to know what kept you going and why. So if you could just give a little bit of your story and talk a little bit about from that perspective.
Okay. It feels weird telling the story now, considering how long ago everything started. Because I think it wasn't until maybe the last year and a half when like Zombie Grub and Fear Dragon started getting some events that I realized I finally wasn't the new guy doing StarCraft events. 6 years later, mind you. But for me, the biggest thing was like I had like the motivation to be like a pro or whatever when I was in school, and at some point, I just kind of the streaming thing just kind of happened, and the biggest thing that really got me on it was I was watching the IGN Pro League, right? The team league that they used to do, the one that like Tasia basically like ruined for everybody. And they ran a commercial on it, and I was watching with my roommates, and they're like, "We're doing a caster search competition. Come submit, make a cast your, send us like any YouTube video you've made where you've cast a game in the last like 3 months, and we're just gonna pick 64 people." So like my motivation for that was just partially I'd like kind of done a little bit of that. I would be like the guy that jokingly did it because I enjoy talking. If that wasn't clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, going through it, I mean, like I guess I've told that story a million times. Like the caster search, didn't really get it, whatever.
But just to roll it back though for a second, Nate, you said your initial motivation was to be a pro gamer. Is that?
Yeah. A lot of people make jokes about like the wristbands and stuff that I wear, but when I was playing like the first year and a half, I started playing seriously in like April 2011. At that point, I had a moment where I was playing so much that like I started to get like wrist pain and stuff in my hands, and I like tried to find a solution for that. And that's like I got into wristbands really early on because I saw that I think it was like probably 91. There was one other guy that wore wristbands really early in StarCraft 2. And it wasn't Sauce. I think it was like when Maru first started playing. Like he was one of the first guys I saw wear wristbands. I'm like, maybe this does it. And I was playing like 12 hours a day or something, just bashing my head against a wall until the casting thing really took off because I could actually make money doing that.
Yeah. So was it more that you kind of liked talking? You were trying to be there's some dream of being a pro gamer, but you were playing a lot of StarCraft and you were like, I'm going to give casting a shot? Or were you like, I'm done trying to be a pro gamer, I'm going to do this now?
Yeah, well, I mean, like the quest to get good at StarCraft also helped distract me from like a lot of like life difficulty stuff that I had. Like, once I had a computer that could play StarCraft, it's like, well, I didn't really have any money. Like, my family wasn't very well off, but I could at least play StarCraft and work on that, and I felt like it could go somewhere. And I always enjoyed doing public speaking type stuff. I loved getting up and standing and talking in front of people. I did mock trial for like 5 years, and that's probably one of the best things I've ever done. Was just you're just basically speaking to strangers, and I found that I had a knack for doing the commentary. I did like a couple of really small online tournaments. I think it was like something Grand Slam Sunday Cast Cup whatever. Like, and I did a few of those, and that was what I used for my application into it. But yeah, I kind of realized that I still wanted to be really good. I still played like 8+ hours a day until maybe like 2015, 2016. But yeah, the public speaking thing was a big motivator.
You explained the wristbands, but was the headband for the sweat, or were you sweating?
What? The real story of the headband is, so my dad used to do photography at like, I don't know, it was like the Toyota Pavilion or something. He did like concerts, and so like we could go whenever we wanted to like any concert, and I wasn't really into that. My brother went, and there was a big Trojan van there, it's like they're doing like Fire and Ice or whatever. So they were like giving stuff out, and then my brother came home from Vans Warped Tour with a Trojan Fire and Ice condom headband, and it was like half purple, half blue. And I was like, this is the coolest shit ever. So I actually stole it from him when I went to Penn State, and I was like, I'm just going to wear this on my stream. And I like wore it backwards because I'm like, I don't know like if I should have the logo there. So that was the headband that I wore originally. And I was like, I just seemed like a kind of cool gimmick, like that was my thing. I was going to wear a headband. I think like my nickname back then was like the Head Bandit or some shit. Yeah, that's the OG. That's the OG headband story. That's where it came from. And after that, someone made me a headband with like Nathanias stitched onto it, and I was like, "Wow, this is extremely nice." So I just kind of rolled with it.
So I have heard your story, and I think a lot of people have, that it was kind of the IGN caster search that really kind of gave you your first big, foray into casting. But I also know that it was a little bit between that and like DreamHack and
yeah.
It's hard to break into the StarCraft 2 or StarCraft casting scene. Was there ever any doubts? Was there any moment where you're like, I can't do this? Or what was your...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the real difficult part, I would say the hardest part started right when I got back, or it was like right when I left, right before I went to Vegas to do the IGN thing. And it was because at that point, like, I didn't really have any money. I couldn't afford, I think it ended up being like $2,000 for like my tuition that semester. So they were like, well, if you don't pay us, we're going to cancel your schedule. And my dad's like, I have terrible credit and no money. And then I got the phone call that day that was like, hey, come to Vegas, do this thing. So that moment for me was like, I have to just take all my shit, go home, and just make this work. And after I lost the competition, might have been like, at that point, I really did not know what was going to happen. And I was pretty, I would use the word desperate at that point to find something to do, because like Playhem wouldn't have me, like a bunch of like, like those guys, like I was still pretty unknown at that point. So when I was looking for things, my dad was like, we'll get decent enough internet for you to stream. He said, you can try this until summer. He's like, I'll give you 6 months because I want you to, I think you can do this, because he saw what I did in Vegas, and he was like, well, maybe this can actually be a thing. And then I was like, well, everyone seems to hate the Pro League casters. So I was like, well, the only thing I could do is just find a way to legally just make a stream that people can watch it on. Because back then, Twitch didn't have any delay if you were watching on like the highest quality. So it was pretty easy for me to just line it up with that. At least that was like that moment was the most trying, because it was just grinding that. And then eventually getting to the point where the next big thing that happened was I tuned into the Ritmix RSL at 6 a.m. and Todd was casting it, and he seemed so bored, like he was hating his life. And I just typed in chat, I'm like, do you need another caster? And then he's like, screw this, you can cast the whole thing. And then that was what got me enough stuff going. And then I did Ritmix RSL. I've got like 500 videos or something of like all of those games. And I was doing that for a bit. And then I used that, and I was able to get the B stream, I think, at that time, for the Acer Team Story Cup. and that's what I was doing. I was doing like RSL and Team Story Cup pretty much every day. I did a little bit of European Challenger. I remember very vividly, I passed out once waiting for the final match because Sauce, I think, had to use the bathroom or something, and I had been up for like 26 hours. I did like Pro League, then I did Team Story Cup, and then I did Challenger or something like that, and then I did Pro League. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I remember they had to like cut the stream off, they reset the stream key. I'll never forget that. I felt really awkward about that. And then yeah, one day I woke up tired as all hell because I had spent the last entire day casting, and I had that message from Hellspawn who was like, "Sup, are you busy?" And like, when would that have been? Like mid-June 2013, and that was where everything really started, right? That was the first event I did.
So I read this as you owe everything to Todd, and I think from there we can go.
It's pretty
Todd
clear.
makes sure to bring it up. Todd makes sure to bring it up all the time. Hey, you could say I also owe it to to Whiplash and the other guy, you know.
Mole Trap?
S&M.
Yeah, S&M. Yeah.
Quick question: who won that casting thing that you were in, and what place did you get?
Kibbles.
They didn't give us actual places, but the winner of that competition was Robin. I think he went by the name Robin Wonder at that point. He ended up in part of the acquisition. He was a community manager for StarCraft for a little bit, and now he is.
Are we talking about Trixler?
Yes, Trixler.
Okay.
Yeah, so
he's now Heroes of the Stormcaster.
He's now Heroes of the Stormcaster. He worked for Blizzard for a good few years, and I think now he's like independent because his stream took off, and he just does that as well. Yeah. Yeah,
he does all the Heroes stuff now. And who was judging that?
It would have been Kibbles and Cat's Pajamas, Kevin Naki.
Okay.
Yeah. I heard I got a lot of points deducted against me for answering the "what is your favorite drink" question with root beer because I wasn't 21. And I had no idea how to move all of my life across the entire country to San Francisco. So as
well, I mean, root beer is the wrong answer. Root beer sucks, but
it does.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the problem. Okay, well, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, they were just like alcoholic drink, and I was like, oh, I'm like 18, and they're like, oh, I was like, yeah.
It's always funny when it gets to that stage, and they're like, oh, that's how old you are, and you're like, is that a problem? Because I'm here now. Is that?
Yeah.
Ugh. But Nate, I want to talk a little bit.
I heard several times after that was like that was a pretty big issue with it.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense.
Being underage, yeah, I understand. For a lot of people, that's been a big issue, I guess. I do want to ask you kind of about that because I'm actually, this is how good of a host I am when I'm on point. I'm going to be setting up Dan's gigantic algorithm on the drama later by asking you about this moment in time where it's kind of a similar scene, if you will, where there are other people doing what you're doing. I'm thinking of like a Caldor and some of these guys who were like the community commentators. They didn't necessarily go to a lot of the big events or something like that, but they were the guys covering, the Korean stuff that they could. They were covering these kind of things, and you were kind of competing against these guys, for lack of a better word, right? What was it like existing as a guy trying to make it as a commentator back then? And you don't need to name names necessarily, just kind of talking about what that's like.
Well, originally it was like a few guys that were doing the stuff that was regular. And I think the biggest thing at that point was Playham. Like the Playham Daily was a pretty, I would have said it was a pretty big deal at that time, especially wanting to get into casting because they had good viewership and it ran every single day and there was a good amount of money on the line. And you'd always have good players. Like Hyun, I think, won like 100 of those or something like that. But there was, I remember when I was getting into it, after I had gotten through like the Team Story Cup stuff and did the first dream hack, I still mostly did community casting for a long time after that before I was getting like regular stuff, like at least for another year or two. And I was in a pretty comfortable spot. This was while base trade was coming up, so I would usually have like A stream and they would be B stream. They weren't too much of a threat. I did get a lot of shit. Actually, yeah, Caldor, everything with him was just a huge pain in the ass because that guy's mega aggro. I mean,
anyone not naming names.
I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat. I'm not gonna sugarcoat. Like I never did anything wrong to the guy, but man, I've had tournaments where I think my favorite example was like it was it was the Millennium House Cup. Yeah, of course, I remember every detail of this. It was like the Millennium House Cup, and we had like a sheet where we were supposed to like pick which games we were going to cast. And I was the A cast. I was like the A person. Like they paid me to do it. They're like, Nate, we'll pay you to do the casting for this. And then apparently at some point, Caldor offered to cast the whole thing for free, but they had already agreed to pay me. So they put him as like quasi A. Because they were like, well, his stream gets good viewers. At this point, he was streaming like StarCraft shit like all the time, and then it was we just got the worst part was like there was some game where it was like there was like a TVT. It was like Gumiho versus someone. It was like some match that I wanted, and I had put my name down first for it, and like this was only the first part of it where he was like, well, I'm really gonna do this match because I don't know the other two players because they're not Koreans, and I'm like, whatever. Like, whatever, I'll cast it. It was some ZVZ. I think I was like Scarlet and someone. I don't really remember. And then the next match, like my game finished really quickly because like this Gumiho Jaedong match or whatever like ended up going for a while. So I was like, all right, the next match was a good one, and I put myself down for it. And we got into this great shitstorm over how I put myself on it first, like 20 minutes beforehand, and I just get this insanely like rant post from him and from one of the admins being like, can you please let Caldor cast this game? Like, we ended up both streaming the grand finals at the same time because of this shit. And it was just like, I think his quote was something like, I'm not going to cast Desro. It was like fucking Desro versus some NA, like, it was like Desro Major or something, instead of like these two Koreans that were playing. And that was just, yeah, every time I had to cast a tournament that he was also in was just always a huge pain in the ass. Just saying.
Well, that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it, because it is an interesting contrast where, we talked to Zombie Grub and a little bit of Artosa's story, but those were a little bit more different in that they didn't have as many people trying to kind of fight against them or kind of because it does get that way.
At that point, I don't think it's worth fighting over, but I don't know much about the other drama thing we're going to get into later today.
Well, Artosa
I generally didn't
story.
have issues.
We'll get into it, but to not segue, but to give you guys an idea of why we're talking about this, it is interesting. And there isn't necessarily a 100% correct answer. There is like a caster etiquette, which we'll kind of talk about. But like, it's interesting because when two people are commentating the same match, or like one match is Desro versus like Jim Bob Full 1-5, and it's like, I don't really want to, I'm trying to break into this thing or whatever. And the other match is Jaedong Gumiho or something like that. But it's important to remember how you conduct yourself in those situations, which we'll get into in a little bit here. Yeah. But Nate, just kind of wrapping up your caster story, you're now obviously a very prominent commentator. I don't know whose mic keeps opening up, by the way, but is that Dan that's doing that?
Is it mine? It might be mine.
It might be Cat's.
I muted and unmuted here and there to cough and shit. That might be it.
Now you're good. Yeah, somebody opens it up and it's like I'm listening to their torture chamber. Like they've got like two people in a torture chamber.
It's definitely not me.
I'm into that, but not right now. But Nate, just to kind of wrap it up, you're a top tier caster, but one of the this is a big subject, but I do want you to touch on this. StarCraft is a grind of sorts. It is actually a very difficult profession. You can do a lot of traveling, you can do a lot, and then of course, you're a streamer as well. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the struggles or what it's been like to remain motivated to be a StarCraft commentator, or what you've done or how you felt about it? It's a big subject.
StarCraft commentary, it's kind of weird, right? Like, because it's such a grind, everybody that has made it to this point actually has like this really strong position, like a really good safety net where it's a good and a bad thing, because I've been doing this for so long and I don't even feel like uncomfortable saying that I doubt, unless I did something really monumentally stupid, that I would get asked to do StarCraft events, especially Premier events, until they stop happening, whenever that would be, right? Like the amount of effort that I feel that I need to put in to do what I do is so much less than before, because there's not really a whole lot of new stuff coming up, which to me is the most painful part of it. It's why I've been trying to do, I have been doing a lot of other stuff lately, just because there's not really a whole lot of places to go, right? Everybody that's here has been here for so long. Everything's very cemented. We all get along with each other, right? But for doing like StarCraft commentary, like there's a generally accepted hierarchy of where things are. Like, I have no aspirations. It might sound terrible, but like how high could my aspirations to be a better commentator be when like I know I'm never going to cast the grand finals of a BlizzCon. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, so stuff like that, like everything is very cemented in this scene, which is like, there's like a comfort in that on one hand. And then there's a, well, like if you're ambitious, if you have like big goals, there's, unless something were to happen, probably a new game that gives like a ton more stuff going on. Like there's only so much to do, and everybody kind of has a set place. At least when I think about StarCraft commentary, that's kind of stuff that I think about. Like it's a very stable, very stagnant sort of thing.
Dan, Katz, any follow-ups?
No, I mean it's kind of seems to be that way. You know, we have a set of things, but the thing is, everything is still moving below the surface, right? It's like the planet. Like all the continents are where they are, but they move slightly every year.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And underneath the surface, more stuff is moving. I think that's a pretty good metaphor, actually.
Yeah.
Is it?
Waiting for it.
What do we take away from it? Nate's like, yeah, it's tough to.
Well, the thing, okay, so he says that there's.
Dan's like, but
I'm
they're
just being
still
honest.
under the surface moving.
Well, no, things move slowly, right? Because the game is older and everyone is in like certain spots or something. But like you see things moving, right? Like more people get invited to WCS events. This has been a story we've had for 2 weeks now, where it's like Nate was one to join us, and it took a while, and then we got Zombie Grub is hitting more events, and we're seeing some other people pop up and stuff. And,
yeah.
You know, that type of thing.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but that's why I opened this discussion with, you know, realizing that up until last year, when I think it was Zombie Grub or Fear Dragon first that like came to do a premiere event. I had a realization. I'm like, wow, I've actually been the newest person to be doing these big tournaments regularly for the last 6 years. It's been 6 years that it's like, oh, Zombie Grub's the new caster, and I'm like, wow, I'm finally not that person. And I only had that realization talking to these people at the events, because I'm like, yeah, wow, it's finally not fucking me anymore.
Yeah, I'm excited for us to keep doing this, in like 5 years down the road, when Zombie Grub and some others are perhaps very established, we can be called the Old Boys and Girls Club, because then it has a completely different meaning. Well, thank you, Nate. I'm going to move on. So we're going to do our second subject here, which is kind of a closer look at cats, and then we're going to move on to our more eclectic subjects. But Katz, as an introduction, has been around StarCraft for a long time. He was a hacker in Brood. No, I'm just kidding. But he played Brood War.
Wait, because you brought this up at the summit. My team, me and Huck's team, Keeper, we got a big bashing because like two or three people got caught hacking. Okay, I never hacked. I would never hack. And I don't think Huck hacked either. Just to be clear, it was Tigro.
Yeah. Because I never hacked, and I'm not sure that Huck didn't hack either.
I don't know if Huck hacked. I highly doubt.
You never know. We just take his word for it.
Can't confirm or deny.
Yeah. But Katz has been a jack of all trades, if you will, in the StarCraft scene, as I'm sure a lot of the chat knows. But for those of you that don't, he is a team owner of Team Root. He has been a person that has moved into other esports as well, fielding Hearthstone players and Dota 2 squads and fighting game players and all kinds of stuff. He's got players from Korea, players from South America, players from America, all over the place. And it's an impossible thing, Katz, to cover all of that. So I'm leaving it to your awesome charisma and intelligence to kind of guide us through this. But I want to talk a little. The generic basic thing is like, again, what was your motivation getting into StarCraft 2? Did you see this? And I hope you don't shy away from this, but did you see this as a business opportunity? Was this like, I'm going to make my living doing that? Or what was your other pathway here? I'm actually not going to even lead it because I want to hear from your thoughts.
No, I think that most people who are still here never saw it as a business opportunity to begin with, right? Like, I think that's one thing that we have in common. That I was playing Brood War with you guys, or slightly below you guys. You know, like In Control was actually one of the first people to recognize me in Brood War, and I'm sure you wouldn't remember this, but at some point you actually like hyped me up for beating a C player. You know, C, the Nada's team.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. You know, like so. I think that when StarCraft 2 was announced, I decided I was going to make a team with Druby, who was my Brood War 2 versus 2 partner, just to sum things up pretty quickly. And we decided we're going to try to make the best team in America. And that was our best and primary motivation.
But what does that even? What's that mean though, Cats? Like, so StarCraft 2 is coming out. You guys are like, we're gonna make a team. So for like us back in the day and stuff, that was like you got your friends in the same clan tag, but you took it somewhere else. Like, how did that happen?
That just happened by virtue of the environment growing around me. As I'm sure it took many people by surprise, right? Like there was no StarCraft 2 was maybe the second wave of esports. And it was the stronger one, the one that prevailed, right? Like the first one was like first-person shooters at some point, gained some through MLG and shit, right? So yeah, I didn't know that esports was gonna exist, and so I couldn't plan to have a business around it. So when we said we're gonna make a team in StarCraft 2, it was just we're gonna recruit people we like, we think are gonna be good, and build around it and try to be the best.
What was the first big business break though? What made it into something more than that? And did you pursue it, or did it come to you?
It most of it came to me. I mean, streaming was just a fun thing to do, right? It was unprofitable at the start. There was Ustream, live stream, I want to say it was called, and then Justin TV popped along. So I was streaming. Then we gained some popularity through that. Drury was also streaming, and that was kind of the start of it. So I actually have. I designed the root logo in StarCraft when StarCraft 2 came out, right? Like we decided to make the team before StarCraft 2 was announced. Okay, like we really just were looking forward to this game. And this is like the first root logo and the first root shirt ever printed. There's only like 8 copies of this. We went to an event with that, and then just to put things in perspective of how fucking little everything was, because this next shirt that I'm gonna show you was printed by Kevin Lin, the COO of Twitch up until recently, right? The guy when Justin TV sponsored, and Justin TV sponsored my team before Justin TV was Twitch, right? He was the one that was like, hey, let me make us the new shirts, right? Like let's make the new shirts with the sponsors. So you see here it has IGN, Justin TV, and PokerStars.
Wow.
PokerStars.
Damn.
And this
that's
was right
some
before
hardcore history right there.
that's before PokerStars collapsed in America, right?
Yeah.
So we were gonna be sponsored by PokerStars. We ran a few tournaments for them. They did great, and then it collapsed. So it was like, okay. But just to put things in perspective, the shirt could only have 3 colors. Like he was like, yeah, we're gonna print your shirts, but they can only have 3 colors. So like imagine that coming from Twitch now, right? Like Twitch showing up and being like, hey, like, yeah, we're gonna do that for you. Like the fucking CEO of Twitch, like walking up to you, we're gonna print a shirt for you, but it can only have 3 colors, right? So shit was small back then, right? Is my point. So when Twitch came along, we went to the launch party. We were the first team, the first team or one of the first teams to stream as a team on Twitch.
Like signed, you mean, right?
Yeah, signed to stream on Twitch. Like Twitch wasn't Twitch until and we got a sponsorship from Twitch. There was no monetary investment from them back then. It was mostly CPM and help with stuff with like the shirts and stuff like that. Eventually they helped us, and as they grew, we kind of grew with them. So the question of being a businessman in StarCraft is kind of a weird one for me, because I would be a very stupid businessman if I was in StarCraft for the business.
Would you?
Right? I think so, yeah. And I'm not in it for the business, right? And I think that most of us aren't. And I think that that's a rough reality, but it's one worth talking about. Because I'll tell you what I'm in StarCraft for, okay? I think that StarCraft, and I wrote this, so I'm gonna put on glasses so that people know that I'm reading.
Really does fly.
So it says, what I wrote is, StarCraft is a game of physical, mechanics, muscle, memory, and mental, and mental. The two things are physical and mental, right? Strategy, muscle memory, mechanics. The non-emotional cognitive processes that I have listed here are critical thinking, creative problem solving, planning and adapting, organizing, prioritizing, action, reaction, risk, reward, deception and mind games, self-discipline, resource, attention, and time management. And all of this is during game in real time, right? With the added physical constraints and the stress, the requirements for speed, for muscle memory, for iteration, doing things over and over. And out of game where you can be more analytical, you can have time to think, reflect, and later apply, right? So each StarCraft game forces you to plan, execute, control, and evaluate. And that is not even talking about like the emotional processes that it forces us to cope with, right? Like such as just internalizing and dealing with your shortcomings, dealing with anxiety, fear of failure. These are all things that StarCraft helped me through, that I've seen many people help the game help people through. And that's kind of what I want to spread. That's what I love about the game, and that's why I'm in the game. It's not, like you mentioned, I've had Hearthstone players, I've had Dota players, I've had Smash Brothers players, right? And those scenes are far more profitable than StarCraft, but they're not the game, right? Like they're not the game that I want to spread. They're not the game that I enjoy. And so whenever it came down to, for example, my budget constraints, if my players, because what I did from the start was I tried to grow my team based on, at the risk of sounding somewhat arrogant, I guess, I would just try to scout for talent, right? Like just look at people, see their thought processes, and determine who could make it far, right? Then this is starting with zero budget, right? So whereas EG could say these guys are the top Brood War guys, so we should get them because they're proven to be successful. I couldn't afford that luxury, right? So instead, I had to find those people before they were good, before they were big. And through that same process, like say through watching streams, because I wasn't good at Hearthstone, I managed to sign to my Hearthstone team. So to those of you who follow Hearthstone, Osaka, he was a world champion. Hot Form, he came second at a world championship. Reynad, one of the most prolific streamers and team owners now. Amass, same thing could be said for him up until a couple of years ago. I don't know what's of him now. Show, well, he was a StarCraft player, so that was easy. Sixo, also one of the best players, like known to reach legend every time before anyone else, right? In short, if I had reallocated, like if I was a good businessman, if I had reallocated my resources to Hearthstone, I could have had the most prolific Hearthstone team, I think, in the world. And that would be, far more profitable than StarCraft, whatever it be. So,
well, you keep selling yourself short. Don't say if you were a good businessman. I would say if you're a businessman first, right? Like your priority was that you had a love for a game, and that was what you wanted to try and make work. Is what I
yes, exactly. And so that's the thing, right? Like as a businessman in StarCraft, I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm in StarCraft as a businessman so much.
I got a Cats. It only took us 30 minutes to get there. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
You're the same as me. We're both very wordy. But I do want to ask you a couple kind of rapid fire questions, and I do appreciate that you said that. So it's very clear you're not in StarCraft because you thought this is where you could do your business. It just kind of grew on you, and I like that story because actually so far of everyone we've talked to, it's been the same story, which I think is. By the way, you can take that from StarCraft and apply it just to gaming. A lot of people ask me, like, how do you get into esports? How do I get a job in that? Almost everyone that has a job in esports, and this is becoming a little bit less true, but certainly the further back you go, none of them pursued that. It just happened because they were doing something they loved, and it grew around them. But I do want to ask you a couple questions, and you can be as specific as you want. I would encourage, you're a no bullshit guy, so actually it's totally fine however you answer this. But I want to ask stuff like, what was your, how much was your first sponsorship for? Like how little or much money did you get back in the day?
I'll have to think back on that. I think PokerStars was going to be for $1,500
for like the year or month or what?
Per month.
Yeah.
But at the time it became difficult, not just because of sponsors, but this has been the story also of the team, right? Because I always had to make decisions that would maybe not benefit the players should I like hold them to their contracts, for example. So like multiple teams wanted Slush and Kiwikaki. Complexity wanted me and Drury. At one point, EG actually offered to buy the whole team and give me and Drury a signing bonus of like $5,000. We refused all of them until it was impossible to refuse because there were too many offers coming at us. So we joined Complexity eventually because they allowed us to stay mostly together. And yeah, I mean, the struggles come from. I mean, that was just at that point it was like $700 a month for me, $700 a month for Druby. I want to say like $300 or $400 for Minigun, and decreasing from there. And Kiwikaki and Slush had offers from RNG. Rain, I think it was called, with Frank Fields, for something like 700 to 1,000 for them. They were the better players.
And this is what year again? Just so people can put it in reference.
Fuck, I don't know, 2012 maybe?
Right?
11? Yeah.
Those are good salaries back then, by the way, guys. It's interesting to think
very
about,
good,
esports has come a long ways. Like, I think in StarCraft 2 that'd still be a good salary now, but back then that was the beginning of people starting to get paid to play this game as a player.
Yeah, and that's been the struggle with my team as well. Is like I recruit players who I think are going to be good, and once they become good, they tend to outgrow the team faster than the team grows.
Yeah.
So I can't keep them all, right? And then I have to forfeit somewhere. And for me, it's usually forfeit every other game.
Interesting. Do you guys have any questions for Cats?
I do actually. How much? You say you're not like doing it for the business. And I know you and definitely trust you on that. I just wonder do you like bank a bunch of money off of Root? Like,
I've never profited at all from Root. Root does pay my living expenses in that we had the team house for the longest time now. So I don't have to pay rent. That's all. Mm-hmm. The rest is just, income that I make streaming or just,
So the business is just kind of like there for the sake of the business and the players then?
Yeah, it's self-sustaining and it's for the players mostly, I would say.
Cool.
I like my team.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been around. It's one of the longest, I would say, in StarCraft 2 to go the distance like that. Well, cool. So if you guys, Cats, do you have anything else? I kind of did. Do you have anything else you want to say, or are we? I think that's interesting.
I mean, no. If you have questions, I'll be glad to answer, but nothing comes to mind.
No, I like it. I think it's really cool that, and I think actually I'm glad you touched on this because it is an interesting subject about like, so we get asked this a lot, and I know that some casters even struggle with this. Like, if you were in it for the money, if you wanted to get rich, then StarCraft 2010 to 12, 13, yeah, okay, that was the esports probably then. But since then, no.
Actually, there is one thing that I want to touch on.
Please.
Like the main reason that Root still exists is Twitch, and that is, I think, not so much because we put up the numbers that Twitch would want for the sponsorship money that they gave us, but rather because Twitch loves StarCraft, and we have that relationship of loyalty from the start, right? Like when Own3D came to try to poach us, we stayed with Twitch. We didn't even listen to their offer at all, right? And that's been rewarded, and a lot of that is also a part of the reason why I will more or less, I think, always be tied to StarCraft to an extent, because Twitch is tied to StarCraft, and it's tied to Root, and it's kind of like a triangle on that front, right?
I love triangle.
Yes, I love triangle.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Cats. I saw some comments in the chat, very appropriately so, saying it got real there for a second. That's kind of what we do. I like it. So far, it's been 5 weeks of no bullshit and people being really honest. I really appreciate that. It's not easy. But now we're going to move into the more opened up comments, and I'm just going to zero in on this to build it up for you guys, because Artosis has to deliver, because he left me out on an island so badly at the beginning of the show. But the subject after this next one is the drama one, okay? I do want to quickly touch on this because this is newsworthy. Serral in this last week set a new ladder MMR record. This is Serral, the Finnish Zerg player, if you are not aware, I guess. He is now considered the #1 non-Korean, and a lot of people think he could be on that short list of like top 5 best players around right now, which of course I want to hear what Artos has to say about that. But the MMR is 7,443. Now, to put that in perspective, Rotterdam on his birthday stream hit 6137 and ejaculated and actually retired from StarCraft 2. And this is literally 1.3 thousand MMR higher than that. So Rotterdam's reaction would be, I don't know. I can't even imagine. Dan?
It's also over 300 MMR higher than second place on the European ladder. Okay, so to put this into perspective, right? Second place, 7,109 MMR. Okay, so the win rate that you have to keep to do this, because the more different the MMR, you get crazy low on how many points you're winning.
Yes.
Okay, 300 MMR difference. 10. Yeah, you're winning very few MMR points. If you lose any games, you're losing many games worth of MMR. So Serral's record to do this, 231 wins and 40 losses.
Insane.
That's not quite 6-1, but it's close. That's crazy.
Like Dan's saying, when you hit this kind of, like, 99% of this was playing against Nurchio, Showtime, Neeb, Euthermal, like the actual only top of the top. He doesn't queue up for ladder and hit Rotterdam. I mean, I actually think they did play one time, but you really don't. He's mostly hitting the absolute top of the top. And like Dan said, you're winning 9 or 10 points and you're losing 30 or 40 for every loss. And he still is 300 points higher than everybody else.
It's super cool. And I mean, at this point, if Serral doesn't come over to Korea and do a GSL qualifier, I'm going to lose my mind. Yeah. Okay, we got one more GSL this year. We got one more Super Tournament this year. Guys, encourage Serral to come over. I want to see it.
We got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Everyone, I'd love to hear about that. Of course, he's there's other things too. Maybe he's in school or whatever, but he's just such an incredibly talented player. It's got me really hyped up for the WCS season, but that is absolutely amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
Kid's fucking good.
This is
Serral's good to StarCraft, guys. That's the whole point of this segment.
I didn't expect a super big discussion about it, but just had to put that out there so you guys can keep around. Someone in the chat did point this out, though. Loco has a video on the StarCraft 2 Reddit right now where he actually did the math that you're closer at rank 200-ish on NA, GM to mid-level gold than you are to his MMR. You're actually closer to that. Fucking
whoa! So 200 rank GM on NA is closer to mid-level gold than it is to Serral.
Yeah. Well, there's the argument should be made for you though, because there's not someone pointed this out on Reddit as well, but there's not enough there's not high enough MMR on NA to give him enough points to get up there.
Well, that makes sense, but that's a fun stat. It's one of those stats that doesn't really actually mean that much, but it's like super cool.
It's actually I'd say it's pretty accurate.
It's definitely apples and oranges.
Diamond instead of gold, but
he's pushing the limits, and we got WCS rolling around here with Austin coming up in June, so I'm excited.
It'll be awesome to see him play. I think he's in the Challenger tournament as well this weekend.
Nice.
A couple of cool casters are commentating that one. Now, next subject. I'm just going to pass it over to my beautiful and esteemed co-host here. He's put in some work. Dan, what are we talking about here?
Okay. It's a little bit long. Okay, I delved into this. It took me about an hour to read every single thing that I could. I didn't go through Reddit threads, but I went through all the Twitter things as much as I could. So I'm just going to do this. I have a timeline here. Okay, so let me tell this. So it's the Warty Gauntlet drama. Here we go. Okay, so I'm trying to do this as told by Artosis. This is to the best of my understanding. I have taken this all from the internet. It is not influenced by my opinions, which I will strongly give afterwards. Okay, here we go. First step, right? The Hangzhou StarCraft Carnival occurs in China, right? We talked about that last week, I believe. Lots of top players there. Neeb ended up winning. It wasn't cast in English, and it was on some Chinese streaming sites, right? So people didn't really get to see it, but that's a really exciting result with Neeb beating Rogue and Hero and stuff like that. It's, that's super cool. So people obviously want to see it. They released the replays of the event. Wow, what a sick event. That's really nice of them to release those replays for us. All right, here we go. The third part of the time frame is where things start to come into question. Those first two, no one can deny. Okay, so Warty and Gauntlet both decide to cast the replays. Okay, Gauntlet being everyone knows who Warty is, I think. He's the name of his channel, and that's his ID as well. Gauntlet is like Bobby Awesome and Infinity. There might be some other, or Element, sorry, Element and Bobby Awesome. There might be some other people involved with that, but those are the people that I saw in this discussion. So anyways, they both decided to cast the replays at some point after they're released. All right. Since Gauntlet does it the day before Warty, so Warty announced, right, that he wanted to do it on his stream. He set a day. Gauntlet actually did it the day before him. So Warty then has some pretty sharp words for them on his stream. He accuses them straight up of stealing his idea of casting these replays and being out of touch with StarCraft 2 content creators. And that's quite a clip that people should check out. Warty's very upset in it and has those choice words. Okay. The next thing that happens, Bobby Awesome refutes the claim of them stealing the idea to cast publicly released Hangzhou replays and mentions that they do not do their, they do not subscribe to any invisible pecking order amongst StarCraft content creators, and they do their own schedule. And he also shows in this tweet that Warty has blocked him on Twitter.
I saw that.
Okay.
Well, there's more words to that, right? Like he says that he questions like Warty's sense of self-importance and shit like that.
Oh yeah.
So it gets...
Hold on, we're still going.
Oh, okay.
Dan's covering this, huh? So far, so
I think I nailed it pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely some quips back and forth from both sides throughout this, and I couldn't include everything because it'll take an hour because that's how long it took me to get through all this. But so then after this, Warty released Skype logs. Okay, he took screenshots of his Skype of him and Element, the other guy, talking, right? And here is a summary of the Skype logs for everyone. Apparently, Warty had tried to figure out a way to cast the event live, but it didn't end up working out. 2 to 3 hours after he announced his casting of it and set it up, you know, like put the event on Team Liquid or whatever, Gauntlet announced that they'll be doing it a day before Warty. And this is all according to Warty so far, right? And I'll go to what Element says in a moment. And then Warty also said that he felt like it was a slap in the face to him, who went through a lot of effort to cast it in the first place. Element then responds that he doesn't look to or consider Warty's channel for anything when it comes to producing StarCraft 2 events. Also mentions he has a newborn and doesn't have time to go looking for things Warty has claimed. Element mentions that Warty had a tweet about content creators playing nonsense games to stay relevant. I looked for that tweet. If that tweet existed, it has been erased. They then go on a little weird debate within the Skype chat about if there was a debate, who would win the debate? It was like, well, I'd win the debate. He's like, you wouldn't win the debate. I about this, right? And so that was kind of weird because they were debating about whether they had a debate that they weren't going to have, who was going to win it. And then they take a couple jabs at each other. Warty's saying that Gauntlet has accused him in BaseTrade of sabotaging content by purposefully streaming over them at the same time. And Element with the classic mom's basement comment towards Warty. So
I love it's an oldie but a goodie. I love it.
And that was the final. Yeah, the mom's basement comment always. That is, it's okay to laugh, Nate. So that is the end of the drama. In the general, right, that last tweet that was put out by Warty with the chat logs, it seems like a lot of people were taking Warty's side. Obviously, that was on his Twitter, so maybe more of his fans following him there or something. But I found that kind of interesting. And yeah, what are you guys thinking? I definitely have some opinions.
First of all, very good coverage of that. That was.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I could work for like a news program or something.
Yeah.
I really,
That was good.
yeah.
This is
I
some
look forward to
dank-ass
seeing you
drama.
on Fox, Dan, one day.
My favorite part of this so far is I keep listening to this story, watching our reactions, and looking over at the chat, and seeing Warty over and over again die another time. And just no. So I'd like to first say I think it's it actually, as funny as and terrible as this is, and I totally agree with Warty, completely blown out of proportion, very silly. It does conjure up the interesting discussion though of conducting yourself as a public community commentator with content, and obviously, it should go to say, by the way, Warty has since then apologized. He has said that he didn't handle it very well. So it's not like, I don't want to leave this out there to people that perhaps aren't looking at the chat or YouTube viewers who are like, this Warty guy sounds like a dickhole. We all have been in the situation where we've gotten mad about something and said something, and he has apologized. I don't know if Gauntlet's apologized, but they're good people too, from what I know, and I would have to imagine that, you know, this going public and getting as much attention as it has is not what anybody involved would have liked. But where do you guys sit on the idea of? So Warty is just his own personal. He's got Warty TV as Twitter and Warty. He's got two separate things. His business is Warty TV, where I met some kind of I met one of his minions or crone. It was a guy at Home Story Cup. It was his bodyguard. This like beautiful beacon of a man, but he works for Warty TV, I guess. So it's like this thing. But other than like, that's kind of the funny part about StarCraft, right? When you announce you're doing something on your channel, that doesn't necessarily ever get received by anybody else, right? Like if I'm like, I'm doing this content, Rifkin doesn't necessarily know I've said that. But then the other funny part of this is, what if they do? Is there any agreed, like, you can't now do that as well? I don't think so, right? Boys?
I mean, I'll step in if you guys don't want to talk, but Nate, I know you have gone through this before, so.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. It's just.
I think it's an issue of perspective, honestly. I think that Warty, with the precedent that he talked about, where he perceived them as having getting mad at him at BaseTrade in the past for like overlapping with events, right? He might perceive it as some sort of hypocrisy, but then the problem is he speaks to their intent and saying that, well, you stole this. Well, there's no way to prove that. There's no way to know if they did or didn't outside of, you know, what the Gauntlet boys say or think they did, right? So from Warty's perspective, I think that's where he's coming from. And then he talks to other casters behind the scenes, and they confirm that he's in the right to him privately, right? So that empowers him to kind of say, okay, I'm right. Like this is where this is going. And then Element and Bobby Awesome on the other side are just saying, well, no, that's just not true. So your argument just dies there, right? Because that's not what happened. We're doing things on our own.
This feels like coverage of a daytime soap opera, but keep going.
Yeah, and then it's just, and then from there, it's like who wins the debate or loses the debate. I think on Twitter wars and whatnot, I think is just going to be the most inflammatory person, because people won't break it down like this, right? In their minds, they'll just be like, oh, this guy's being more of a dick, because he's, you know, the mom basement comments or Warty's saying that that they're struggling to stay relevant and shit like that. This low blows just are what people I think look at, but I think it's just a misunderstanding.
All right, well, Nate, I need more out of you, because right now, by the way, I can feel the spirit of Tyler fucking twisting. He's so upset. This is some dank drama, and no one's dropped the hammer.
Does anyone give a fuck about any of this? Yeah, like, no. I don't know.
I don't think they do.
Dan, this is a really important question. Did they just go to in your mom's basement, or did we get like a your mom joke? Did we get like a
straight to your mom's basement?
Did either of them call each other Gold League? Like, did any other war crimes happen here?
There was no accusal skill level in StarCraft this time around. But yeah, it had to do with he's busy with his kid or something. So once you don't live in your mom's basement, have a family, maybe you'll understand something like that.
Can I just say for the guys out there in their mom's basement that it's not so bad, okay? I don't, you know.
Hey, look, first off, get in your mom's attic, because that's where I lived for 25 years before I got out here to Korea, okay? There's no shame in that, and in fact, okay, so I've done both of those, just to throw this out there. I know things are said in the heat of the moment and everything. If you're doing stuff like making StarCraft content in your mom's basement or her attic, in the Artosis case, there's no problem with this whatsoever. This is actually, it's a bigger sacrifice. I now have 3 children, and this is a joyful thing that I sacrificed for taking care of them, whereas living in my mom's basement was a sacrifice, right? Where it's like, oh man, I'm like putting up with this kind of shitty life. Everyone else from high school is out with jobs and, you know, doing stuff all the time, and they have apartments and stuff, and I still live with my mom so I can do StarCraft. So that's a badge of honor, not an insult. But it's funny that it's still used as a as an insult.
You wear the
Yeah.
basement or attic badge.
I'm doing today's show. I'm doing today's show from my girlfriend's mother's basement, you know?
Yeah.
Just, and I'm if you know, you envy the caster life, guys. We can still do shit out of mom's basements. It's all good.
Absolutely.
All right. Never give up that
It's a cheap
dream.
place to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know
guys cheapest.
I don't know if Warty's in his mom's basement. It doesn't matter though. Anyways, those little snippy things aside, I think that because those are just funny because we're like, yeah, the mom's basement. Okay, like what are we doing here? Are we adults? I think the actual question is, can there be theft of something like this?
Yes.
Right.
The value of this.
Yeah. And I look at this, and for me, I look at this and I think, okay, this sounds crazy to me. This is like the most obvious content in the world for everyone to make. In fact, if I had been playing StarCraft 2 and I had checked on my stream and I had checked Reddit and seen those replays up, I probably would have fucking hosted them up and started going over some of them. Because it's just like, that's what you would do. These are great replays. You don't normally get access to replays like these that people haven't seen the games of for the most part. And there is absolutely, in my opinion, and think it's crazy to think anyone could claim these replays from a tournament in China as theirs and be upset if someone else does them. Competition is a good thing, and that I find that all weird. At the same time, I do want to back up and check my caster privilege and say, like, I'd be interested to hear from a third party, specifically someone like Rifkin, what they think on something like this.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not in that
Phone a friend.
clique, but I'm just saying, like, if I had decided to boot up those replays and someone talked shit and said I stole their idea, I would be shocked. You know, I'd be like, what?
We'll have Rifkin on eventually. I haven't asked him yet, but it definitely the day is coming, and we'll do the Nation Wars thing where we make this that's the second part of this. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But if that's it for us guys on the drama, we can move on. Are we good?
We good.
I think I'm going to summon Tyler next time. He's actually
Who won that debate then?
Jeff, did we get your opinion on this?
I mean, the real solution to all of this was just that because Warty was going to cast it second, he should have just opened up a raid call channel and re-streamed it without the video content so that people could have listened to audio from one stream while the other guy was live. There you go. I think that's the only solution that would have worked.
Yeah. I mean, my take on this is like, and it's just funny because I feel for you, Warty. You're in the chat. It's like just raking you over the coals of this terrible situation. You'd like to just disappear forever. But having been in your position, and I think a lot of us have, but probably me more so maybe than others, where you've got a community, you're a public person of some sort, and then something kind of rubs you the wrong way, and rather than kind of think about it for 10 minutes, you just kind of fucking go straight to the mom's basement, which actually came to you, not the other way around. But you get mad, you say some shit, and that was what happens on your stream, is you're just like, those guys stole my content, that's my idea. And of course, to you at that moment, it sounds right. But what's kind of interesting, and I was about to use the word fun, because for me it is kind of fun, although some of the things that have happened in my past weren't fun, but you learn from it, and that's interesting. But like, there is being a person, and then there is being a person on camera with a microphone and people listening, and it's very different. And I've said some really stupid shit, and will say some really stupid shit moving forward. And it's not that you can ever get to a place where you don't do that, but you get better about what you say, and then when it happens, how you handle it. And it's not that Warty didn't handle it very well, by the way, because he almost immediately apologized. But the pseudo rookie mistake that he did make was he got into like he doubled down. Warty fucking doubled down on this a little bit, where he was like fucking stupid thing, and then he's like, no, I can make that an argument, yeah. And he's like you did kind of steal content, and you should have checked my channel. And then it's like, does that sound right? But then the other guy's like, you're in your mom's basement. You're like, ah, shit, we're at the same level here.
We're both in each other's mother's basement.
And then it doesn't look good. But my favorite is that Warty had a tweet where he just tweeted the Skype like pictures and said like, fuck it, you guys decide. I don't want to call it the worst mistake you've made, but
let's go.
You never, ever encourage the generic internet public to have any opinion on anything, because most people will be very reasonable and be like, oh, okay, that seems like a debate between a couple of people that I generally like anyways, but you know what? They probably came to an end. And then they don't type that because they're reasonable people. you get the unreasonable people who reply with, "Hey, Warty, you're a fucking piece of poop, and I'm actually eating your wiener tonight for dinner." And then you respond to that guy because you're in this heat of the moment thing where you're like, you're an idiot. I just checked your picture. It looks like you collect dump truck toys. And the guy's like, "Whoa, shit." And it gets really weird. And it's just a circle of bad and weird. And now there's people on a talk show talking about how bad that was.
Yeah, like, why would you eat a wiener made of poo as well? It's like,
that's the people, man. That's the people that come at you.
God, please.
Yeah.
So I suspect moving forward that this will
Where's
get
the
handled
lifeguard?
very differently. And like I said, it's a learning experience.
well,
Like,
but
for
since
instance,
he
there's been
submitted
people
it
in the past
to
who
the
dressed up in a
public opinion.
Pikachu costume and made comments about
And
the balance of the
that was
game.
a great segment, guys. I think we're ready to move on to topic number 6 today on the show. Hope you're all enjoying the Pylon Show here today.
You know what? Nate's right, though. Let's move on to topic number 6 here. So, moving on to the
Avila
drama.
Nation Wars. What do you guys think?
No, I love it.
Get out of here.
I've been holding my tongue, watching
We
every
actually
episode.
have a pocket drama subject, but I think we have to save it for Tyler. With how tepid that response was. Holy cow. He would be he's so disappointed. But unfortunately, it's mostly for Dan and I because we're like supposed to make it really happen. But topic 6, new StarCraft 2 patch incoming. And we we have a couple of great Terran minds here, and then me and Katz. So let's talk about that because that patch is basically all Terran.
So, just the chat's going to be just so happy because every week everyone Raven. That's like basically our entire Q&A is people spamming our questions about the Raven. Let me just read what the new patch. This was posted 1 day ago about what they want to do. Anti-armor missile, damage reduced from 30 to 15. They had thought about reducing the speed or acceleration, but that would give it more of a mid-game nerf, so they're just going to nerf the overall damage halfway. And also on the Raven, which seems to be beyond anything any bunker jokes we could make about changing that back and forth. The Raven has taken over. But the auto turret range will be increased from 1 to 2. That's the cast range. It used to be 3 when we saw like every game auto turrets being flung out, right? So it's right in between there now. And then kind of in the same mind that this might make later game against air a little bit harder for Terran, the Vikings getting a 10-point hit point increase from 125 to 135. And then to try to help Terran out in the mid-game transition into the late game, the Marauder attack is going back to a 1 attack instead of a double attack, which basically means it's better against armor. The armor would take 2 away from the double.
They finally added the Marauder back into the game. Big day for Terran. Big day.
Nate, as a guy that plays a lot of Terran, what are you thinking, man?
Well, the Marauder change is really interesting because what was it in the last patch? They're like, we want to make sure that we don't make any changes that influence TVZ too much. I don't think I don't know how many people thought about this. We've never actually seen the old school Marauder fight versus like Ravagers and units like that. I think this is a pretty huge, monstrous buff for Terran. Definitely necessary versus Protoss, but I will say I was so annoyed with the Raven shit, so I'm glad that's been tweaked back and that we have a little more mid-game firepower. I don't know that the Viking change is too crazy.
10 health. What is the thought with that? Why?
That they specifically said that was to combat some of the spells that are used against them, like Parasitic Bomb and Psy Storm, because those wreck Ravens. I mean, a Viking's pretty hard.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just trying to think of the world where you're psionic storming Vikings.
Yeah, Vikings are no longer made of thin sheet paper. They're now made out of cardstock. So there you go. We're moving up in the world.
Listen, until you've used Wraiths to try to kill anything, don't you ever the Viking like it's weak.
Is it though?
People seem pretty happy about it, though. It's I did read the 2 threads. There's one on Team, the one on Reddit, of course, and
it's a great patch.
Good changes.
These are all good, necessary changes. The anti-armor missile stuff is stupid. The Viking thing, I don't know that it's like actually the mega solution for endgame. The fact that they specifically called out against, I wasn't on last week's show, but I was pretty triggered that they specifically were like, there's really no need to tweak any of the late game Terran units, such as the battlecruiser, despite the fact that it's more expensive than any of the other units and the least used and least effective. But, you know, Maybe one day. Maybe one day we'll get there, and the most expensive unit in the game can not suck monkey nuts. That'd be great.
Did you know, Nate, that if you try to make every unit usable, then other units will rotate to being the least usable, and then we'll have to make those usable, and eventually everything's too usable, but there will still be units that are less usable than the other usable units.
I don't disagree with you, Dan. I'm just saying.
I know you like your BCs. I know you listen. You had your little month of fame where you and TY were using battle crew.
You know,
you had your
man
time.
can dream that there's still room for experimentation in StarCraft. That's all.
Do you need a fusion core for anything other than battle cruisers?
Liberator range.
Okay, so let's say you are in a game where you get lib range, right? Why not get a casual battle cruiser just so you can teleport it to like your opponent's main base? Because the battle cruiser has so much HP that it will drag a substantial number of units, more than its cost.
What do you think?
Into their main base. Yeah, so it's usable then, right? If it does that and opens
the battle cruiser, the 400 mineral, 300 gas, 67-second build time unit in real time is most effective as a harass unit on its own.
Yeah, diversion.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
that's what the most expensive unit in the game is for, and it can maybe kill a queen if you have Yamato research by the time you teleport over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it actually more expensive than a carrier because you have to build interceptors?
Well, I mean, most people generally say that gas is worth more than minerals, right? So what carry is 250 gas, and the X50 gas versus the cost of 4 interceptors.
Debatable. Especially with Terran, I think it's debatable.
Fleet Beacon is more expensive than Fusion Core, and Stargate is more expensive than Starport. So the infrastructure cost is a little bit higher.
Yeah, sure.
But you can't chrono boost.
Okay. Well, to Katz's point about the battle cruiser, which has patch, that's one of those things where over time you'll see that type of thing mixed in more, especially if you're not, excuse me, not using your tech lab starports nonstop for Ravens. Then I think that'll help out. There's a lot of moves that we're still just seeing added, and it takes people a long time to go. Like Blink DT, SOS finally used a macro Blink DT build, right? It's the first time. Everyone thought it would be broken. It's just so hard that it takes a long time. I think things like that battle cruiser can come in.
I think so too.
Maybe someday.
I think you also just have to not that this is a popular thought, and it's not necessarily we can never complain again, but like any balance change to StarCraft is going to have a significant portion of people that are like, that's good. And then equal parts of people that are like, I don't like that. Every single time. I think if we were balancing, if Brood War got the StarCraft 2 treatment, it would literally be 20 years of people whining. But one of the smartest things they did, and it wasn't even a decision they made, it's just something that happened, they just didn't balance it. And we're going to get to this subject in a second, but like Brood War, they were just like, that's the fucking game. And people are like, vultures? Are you kidding me? 75 minerals and it drops 3 mines that get up and run after people? What were they thinking? They can actually kill Infinity Zealots and Zerglings if in the right situation. Can you imagine 2017, 16-year-old Jamie Smith comes into StarCraft and it was like handed Brood War and is like, here's the balance of the game. And this kid's like, this is insane. A queen lifts up her skirt, shoots out a little turd, and it fucking kills something for free? It costs mana? There's Dark Archons that mind control shit for free? It's like, what is this, fucking Thanos Fortnite gaming systems here? Is that what we're dealing with?
Thanos Fortnite.
But because you can't talk about balance in that game, we all just accept it. And
that is true.
Kind of misses. But that being said, 2010 StarCraft Wings of Liberty versus 2018 Legacy of the Void, the game is nowhere near, like, it's in its best form, so obviously proof's in the pudding. I'll take the whining for the game. It's fine.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I wonder because they kind of keep it super fresh by continually patching. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that StarCraft 2 has that StarCraft 1 doesn't have. And before we get too sidetracked, I do want to say I just think that this patch is really good.
It is a really good patch.
It's just quality. I think that this is going to be one of the least whined about patches overall.
Yeah, we'll have to get a Bilo on the show to really get to dig into this patch, I think. But so that's the patch discussion. We are now moving on to GSL continues. We had some interesting results there. Dan, how's GSL? You've been casting with no regret. I've seen the threads.
Well, I casted with him on the Xanster. Tasteless couldn't make it that day, and then actually yesterday I had some deaths in the family, so skipped it, and no regret cast with Tasteless, so pretty cool having him around. Rap is on vacation currently, but
some
he'll be
people
back
are saying it was the best commentary duo they've ever seen. Did that give you any pangs of? I saw some
well,
people.
it reminds me of every other casting duo that's ever come onto the scene, and I see how long lived they all are. Like MC at Home Story Cup, we still see him casting English all the time. Plenty of threads about that being the greatest cast that there ever was. Yeah, that's fine. People like freshness. That's cool. I'm happy for them.
The thread about it, just to specify, was about the name because it was regretless.
Regretless.
They thought that the name of their Archon would be the greatest, not the cast.
I do want to say that one of our favorite, and when I say our, I kind of mean the caster group. One of the best things that happens is one of my favorites. Because I'm part of the old guard. I was there from the beginning, so now I get to kind of witness these young people experiences for the first time. When a commentator comes on for one of their first big gigs, without a shadow of a doubt, the Reddit thread descends and just says, can I please get some motherfucking appreciation for this goddamn zombie grub cast right now? It is giving me life. And they talk about it, but what does not get talked about, and I'm glad Zombie's in the chat because this is coming. This is one of my favorites. It's not year one. The appreciation threads kind of deteriorate. They go away a little bit. And then there's like a quiet lull where you're just a commentator. But in comes my favorite fucking part of being a commentator. And it's about year 2. Let's call it month 16 or so, where the motherfucking hate threads start to come in. And that's when you've made it as a commentator, when you've done your job enough that you're pissing some people off. And I gotta tell you,
oh yeah,
it sucks because Nate had about a 4-year period of this because he was the only new commentator for a while there.
Yep.
And I fed on it for a while, but 4 years of just Nate hate is just, after a while, it's like, give me some macaroni. I don't want the pizza anymore.
So nice. I've realized now. At first, it was nice when people talked about you, but then it is so nice when people don't talk about you. I haven't seen a thread talking about me or like being upset that I lost a game in like years. It's actually been like a year and a half, 2 years.
Well,
it's the greatest thing ever.
You just fucked it up. But
it's the greatest thing ever, really. It's yeah.
So I'm excited.
People can shit on Zombie Grub and Fear Dragon for a year or two.
Fear Dragon he's the next wave even. I'd say Zombie she's actually it's not there yet, but she's in that lull. It's kind of quiet right now, and that's when you should be most afraid. Well, but Fear Dragon still has the he commentated that WCS group, and I think it was some of the best commentary I've ever heard.
But then eventually he'll get the mega hate thread where it's like, guys, does it seem like Fear Dragon's just trying too hard? Why is he so nice about this guy? Like,
something like that.
How is this guy nice? How is this guy not learned to fucking kick his feet up on the table and let his hair down after a year and a half of doing big events? Seriously, what's wrong with him? Yeah, that'll happen.
But it gets to a good place. The end of the story is good because there's that hate. It's a cast iron fire that you have to make it through. And then you become there's a couple different stages, but for instance, I'm in the stage that I call Reddit invisible. Nobody talks about me, whether they like me or hate me at all, actually. And that's, as Nate said, it's kind of nice to not be talked about, so it's good.
Is it, though?
It is. It is. Yes, it is.
Haters just mean that you made it. It's whatever.
Was it Winston Churchill? No, it's not Churchill. Someone said
I prefer for the haters to show up in my chat, and we can just call them. That's chat utopia, I think, is the word.
Well, hey, we talked about thank you. We talked about some bad stuff about Warty, but I do like another clip that was on Reddit that I think is a good thing is and we've experienced this too. Warty's casting and I can't even. We should pull it up. It's like, but it's funny. Some guy came in and said something along the lines of like, "God, what is Warty's? He got that wrong." And Warty's just in beautiful British, like the only way a British person can. He's like, "Mate, if you don't like the fucking content, get the fuck out. Get out."
That was great. That was wonderful.
What the fuck? And I was like, "Oh, that was pretty good." And then he went on for like 3 more minutes, and I was like, "Yeah, this guy gets it. I like it."
I feel like Warty. I almost brought that up in the previous discussion because it seems like he's there about to blow up, right? A little bit, like just release some of that stress. But I like that one, yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
So GSL though, anyways, we got sidetracked with the commentary stuff though. But what's heating up in there, Dan? What are you liking?
Okay, so there was a group Bisu getting through. Our last group is in 2 days on Saturday, and that'll be the end of the round of 32. So it's kind of exciting. As far as like just who's in and who's out, all the non-Koreans did end up dying, but they put on some really great fights. Like, for instance, that Zanster did really well in his group and stuff. We talked about that before.
Yep.
There haven't been a ton of upsets, though. If you look at the actual players that got through, basically the favorites have gotten through almost every time. I would say that maybe Group B is the one where that didn't happen. We had Scarlet losing and Patience getting through over her. I think most people would favor her over Patience there. But other than that, everything has been like kind of exactly how it's supposed to be. So our round of 16 is gearing up. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. So far, for actual quality of games, actual level of gameplay, and like closest of groups, this has been the best round of 32 ever. Maybe not for hype. Like, we've had more hype GSL seasons. Wow, and like, everyone's taking their shirts off while they're watching and stuff, and being crazy and just like, oh my god, it's like the second season of GSL and Fruit Dealer Wonders, you gotta win again or whatever. But those games sucked, right? Now we have like sick quality games. This round of 32 has been out of control. The fact that we've had like only one upset so far, and then we have one group left. We'll see if we get Dark and Innovation out of it. But that like sets up the round of 32. I mean, the round of 16 to probably be the best we've ever had as well. So,
and the next GSL group is what time? I mean, for you it's a little bit weird. You're in Korea, but it's Friday, right?
Yeah, so it'll be right now. It's 2 hours from now in 2 days. Yeah. 2 days and 2 hours from right now when you're watching this. So that's 1 p.m. KST on Saturday. So you can do your time zone thing, but it's good time for NA.
All right. Yeah, that's the one I always actually catch. Check it out. And then we move on to ASL Continues. We talked about this. It is the first PvP Grand Final in StarCraft Brood War. And you said 9 years, right?
9 years and 5 months. The last one being Bisu versus Jongbi. Wow. That was the last time that we had a PvP Grand Finals, but we will have it here. It's going to be Rain, the StarCraft 2 god. Which is really cool. Rain and Sulky, two of the absolute best players in StarCraft 1 now. But he is awaiting, actually tonight. We did a weird schedule shift. I'm not sure why, but in a few hours I'll be going in to cast Mini vs. Snow in best of 5 on ASL. And the winner of that goes up against Rain.
Very cool. It's actually 3 Protoss in the top 4. Can we get some balance in Brood War, please? For Pete's sake. So make sure to check that out. So when is the broadcast? You said it's in like 2 or 3 hours?
It is at 7 p.m. tonight. So it's actually the broadcast.
Your mic cut out again. When?
The broadcast starts 8 hours from right now.
Oh, 8 hours from right now. Okay.
Yeah.
But give that stuff a check, guys. I know a lot of people in the chat are StarCraft 2 people, but you are StarCraft people, and I'll tell you, and I'm sure you guys have watched some Brood War, but like, it's actually really fun to watch, and you will understand a general concept of what's going on. But especially the closer you get to finals, the more Tasteless dumbs down his commentary to be just kind of an educational commentary. So he will help you. He'll guide you there. And then if you're like, but I want some dank information, count on our Artie McTosis here to give you some of that as well. Quick aside to this, as a Brood War thing, I do want to add this here. Did you guys see that clip of, it's at the top of the StarCraft Reddit, 20 years later and people are still finding stuff. Someone found a way to glitch the merging of an Archon to get units together to then have a larger recall with the Arbiter.
Yes, I can speak in depth on this if you want.
Do it. Get deep on it, please.
Okay. A new bug has emerged in Brood War. 20 years, guys. It's been like 19 without a patch. It's crazy. I don't know what we're going to call it yet. I've seen it called clustered recall bug, and there's a few different things. Basically, this is what it is, right? A recall generally will in 20-25 units for an Arbiter. Just beam them right to the Arbiter immediately. It's generally only used against Terran, very rarely against the other races. But it's a very powerful move. It's one of the main ways to play player. But everything's fine in that matchup currently. Now this move, so basically the Arbiter has a cap on. It has like an amount of space that it recalls things from, right? So whatever you can get in that space, it'll try to recall everything from that space, but it has a maximum area where things will end up going into, right? So like, for instance, you can't, there's all sorts of tricks where you can like burrow like a bunch of units and unburrow them all together, and they're all together and you recall or something, right? But the thing is, it will only fill up a certain area, but that area is bigger than what it recalls from. Okay, now Protoss doesn't have anything like burrow. There are sometimes people have some units in a shuttle or something. That's a way to kind of cheat, quote unquote, some more units into the Terran base. But this new way, and the thing is, it was really funny reading through the threads. Everyone's like, why is this news? Like, this isn't a new thing, and we always knew we could stack and recall. No. The way that you can do this is actually very doable in game. I don't know how they figured this out, but basically what's happening here is there's two ways you can do it. You can use Templars that are to an arc, or you can use a probe that's mining. Both of these do a displacement thing on top of other units where they walk through, right? It's like mineral walking. You mineral walk your probe through something, it just goes right through it. So what happens is, as it's displacing units, if any units it's going under, it kind of glitches them. So what you do is you spam patrol on all your units. So you have a bunch of units, and you can actually get them into a tiny circle now, a ton of units. And you can do this so simply. I saw pros doing it, where they just have a mineral with a probe that's holding minerals with their army in the middle of the map. They right-click all the units onto the probe. They start patrolling, spamming patrol, and they tell the probe return minerals. So this is actually very simple, right? And within a few seconds, all the units are on top of each other, and then you can recall them. Now, there is going to be a maximum amount you can recall, but basically from around 25-ish units that recalls generally get, these guys are getting over 40 units every time now. Damn. Okay, so we are getting almost 100 supply recalled into a Terran base off of this little move. That isn't the only thing. This is still being tested. I saw some this morning, so I didn't get to test anything. But you have the things on patrol. Okay, patrol is the command that you generally use to fire most quickly and to micro units heavily in StarCraft. Right? You'll use patrol sometimes, like on vultures, to do moving shots, like where you're flicking it back and forth to kill things that are chasing you, like Zerglings or Zealots. You can use it with Dragoons and stuff. Patrol is a very useful command because it just gives the attack command quicker. So the units are already pre-patrolling. Generally on a recall, you have all your units sitting still, and then you recall them. They appear in the main. It takes a moment. They start to attack. These units are already patrolling. So when they come into the main base, they are actually shooting down spider mines. And that's the most scary part of this whole thing. Because if you... Zealots with +2 attack, one-shot spider mines, 2 Dragoons will kill a spider mine. So and the other part, right, just to make this completely clear, the glitchiness of the units, when they get recalled, they're all perfectly set up, right? So I don't know about the mine shooting down thing, if this would be something that is really screwed up, or it's truly working, or people are just getting over dramatic and getting scared about it. But the units are not glitched when they come into the main base like that. So it's a crazy bug that absolutely can see play and absolutely is usable, but it has its risks, obviously.
TT1 from the chat wants to know, does this break TVP?
I think it's way too early to say that.
Your mic cut out.
Your mic's cut out a lot, bud. I think it's the further you get away from the microphone, by the way.
Yeah, I'm getting excited, so I'm like, oh, wow! So I would say that it's like way too early to say if this will break anything, because there are issues with this. Here's a few things that I just came up with off the top of my head, obviously, right? They're recalling more units, so if you're really ready and this patrol thing doesn't ruin your spider mines, they're going to lose, closer to 100 army supply when they do the recall. Another thing is, if you kill the Arbiter ahead of time, like if the recall doesn't get off, and everyone knows recalls don't always get off, then all these units are dancing. It is so hard to separate them. It takes a long time. So that is something, if you attack into these units while they're falling on top of each other, they're never going to even do damage. Like, you're going to kill the entire army for free. I
love the StarCraft world we're in, where Dan, and it's not any fault to you, but like a very earnest look in his face is like, when you get these guys dancing together, it is so fucking hard to separate them. They will not stop.
Seriously.
Someone just
they
comes
don't
into that
dancing.
conversation.
But anyways, that's
off.
one thing. And I also view it as this scanning an army is already valuable, but now it's kind of like scanning the cybernetics core, right? That's a little trick you can do to see if Protoss is going carriers. You scan the core, and if it's spinning, they're getting air upgrades, so they're making carriers. Bam, there you go. If you scan the army and you see them starting to do this, you know recall's coming, so you can for it, right, and then pick it off. So yeah, I think people are jumping the gun trying to say this is going to be imbalanced.
Very good.
Okay. TT1 shut down. Now that's a hacker.
Oh, come on.
I remind him every day. He's a great friend.
He's apologizing.
Got him.
That's a hacker and a half.
Last subject, and then we'll move into the Discord Q&A. We got a StarCraft 1 update from Korea, Dan.
Yes. Wow, this is a lot of just me talking here. Okay,
it has been a lot.
Yes. So there was a big update for StarCraft 1 from Blizzard to Korea, I guess. Why don't they give us the same update in English? Anyone have any ideas about that?
Because English people don't play StarCraft Brood War.
Oh, that's why. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my entire life, for 20 years now, people have been
Yeah.
but I do play, and people use with the Google Translate. I've gotten as much info as I can out of this. I'll just quickly run down the list.
Please.
They've improved the lag issues a lot, especially in Korea. Turn rate 24 is basically the same as LAN latency, and 75% of games in Korea, that means me, are on turn rate 24. 97% total at 16 plus, which is really playable. They're still working on the latency between Korea and the rest of the world. I can say personally, the lag has gotten a lot better. I play it just about every day. They're still working on the user interface. There's a PTR being made, right, a public test realm for things that they're going to try to change. They're thinking about messing with the mineral locations, right, because some spots mine quicker than other spots, but that is part of the game, so do they do that? There's all sorts of things that can mess that up. The Valk bug came up. The Valkyrie sprite limit has been raised to such a degree that will never happen in StarCraft 1. Or in a 1 vs 1 rather, sorry, maybe in a 4 vs 4 or something it could. There's a new ladder season coming soon, and it's going to have tiers with placement matches and rewards. So kind of like StarCraft 2, it looks like. I don't have the exact information on that, but that seems to be what it says. There was something that did not translate through Google Translate very well about random versus random. I'm not sure if they're trying to make it so that you can pair against other random people or something like that. Or, you know, because we have like separate MMRs in StarCraft 2, which kind of solve that. Whereas if you play random on your main account, you're going to get wrecked in StarCraft 1 a lot of the time, or 2/3 of the time probably. Unless you make gateways in the middle of the map, then you can just win anyways, whatever. 3 seasons a year for the new ladder system. Map updates will happen each time, but Fighting Spirit and Circuit Breaker are going to remain definitely. People really like those maps. They want to make clan systems eventually, but that's not going to be soon. They're going to reduce the waiting time when someone's disconnecting. Some people still disconnect. It's hilarious. I don't get it. You still get the loss. They're going to be adding 2 vs 2, 3 vs 3, and 4 vs 4 ladders this year. D&D, yeah. That's I'm surprised that we haven't had 2 vs 2 yet, because that's actually really popular in StarCraft 1. But the /DND works again on Battle.net, so you can mute people basically. That's really good. Obviously, they're not going to change any balance. And there was the thing is, a lot of this update was just to Korean community members. So maybe this will be the excuse for not updating the non-Korean scene at all. But a lot of questions from them. And a lot of the things in there were like really stupid that the community members came up with, but one was really funny. And they said, starting MMR is too high, which is just like really, really funny, because it's like, no, you don't understand what MMR is. But there's your update. That's it.
All right. They're still doing
That's what I got out of it. No.
You know, it's funny. It's worth mentioning. I think if I read that correctly, recently they actually did patch and balance Warcraft 3.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Fucking crazy.
I heard they made that game have like real servers or something. Everyone always told me you had to play it on like VPNs because you had insane ping, but someone told me that like kind of got fixed, so you can play it normally now, if like as like a normal person with that insane lag either, which was pretty cool. If that's true, I haven't actually played it, but it was one of the turnoffs when I tried it.
Todd is my Artosis of Warcraft 3. Like, it's one of my favorite streams to watch because it's, again, even more so than Dan. It's someone that used to be very, very good at a game.
Easier game, please.
Getting bonked by people who just never stopped playing, and it's Todd. Dan's rage is like, it's almost like you're witnessing a guy by himself talk about anger. Todd knows there's an audience, and I think he doesn't care. It's a different level of anger that I really appreciate. But it's
my favorite clip of Todd is the one about the Heat with Take.
Oh yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
TwitchStreams and Todd the Heat. Look it up on YouTube, guys.
It's very good.
I love the Todd clip of him running to get the package at the door without pausing the game. That was I died on that.
That's amazing.
There's a lot of good Todd clips out there.
We're going to move it to the Q&A, guys. So just to reiterate once again, there is a The Pylon Show Discord. You can pull up a command. I believe it's !Pylon Q&A, which will open up a Discord group that you can join into and ask questions. That's where I'll be pulling questions from. But wait, there's more. If you're a Patreon supporter of The Pylon Show, there's actually a super secret Boys and Girls Club channel that you can join into where I will look first for questions there.
Ooh,
wow, that's privilege.
Brilliant.
That's privilege in action. Yeah, so we'll get more stuff there, but that's one of the first things. And Bob B, literally Bob B, some of these... he asked the only question, but it's a good one, and that's makes sense. He's a smart guy. He supports the channel and the show. It says, what were your favorite past productions/events, and what set those productions events apart from anything that goes on currently? I want to start with you, Katz. What have been some of the best? What was the? I try to stay away from what was the best because most people get tripped up by that. What's one of the best you've ever been to, and why was it better than what goes on now?
I want to say my favorite was the latest event, actually, the 20th anniversary. That was just a lot of fun. And maybe it's because I hadn't been to events. I think we talked a lot about this. Like, we echoed the same feelings because we're, like, a lot of us are former professional players, and we kind of miss that small scene where everyone's friends and just hanging out. And that was a ton of fun for me. That was my most fun event. And that's exactly why, just talking to good friends and hanging out and playing games.
The feel of LAN, like just the LAN environment is something that for a lot of us we kind of grew past, but that event did bring that back. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Aside from that, maybe the very start, we were talking about how Legacy of the Void is better than Wings. I agree, but Wings was by far my favorite time, and that's because the game was new and there was so much to explore. Everything was unexplored, so everything was just fun. It was just exciting to find new strategies, to see things happen for the first time, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So probably one of the first MLGs.
Nate, what about you, buddy? What's your answer?
That's a really difficult question. Because I'm thinking about it from I'm trying to think about it from the fun perspective, but also the work. And now I'm thinking about work perspective. Initially, my brain went to event I worked at where I was like, this is just a great production to be a part of or something. And I would say what comes to mind, I thought that I really enjoyed everything that we had production wise at IEM Pyeongchang. But if we're going back to fun memories, that gets really difficult because I don't know. There's too many. I don't know. I think the old days events was a very special time. I guess I'll go with Cats. My first MLG that I ever went to, where some guy from Maximus Black's stream just picked me up and just drove me to Ohio with them. We all went to Columbus and just got fucked up and then went and played an open bracket. It's good times. I'll never forget those days. Watch Destiny fucking passing out on the floor drunk off 2 shots. That's the best. Good times.
Nice.
Yeah. Dan?
Yes. Well, I have a great answer for this one, actually.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, yeah, I agree, with both of what they're saying. That was a really fun time with the MLGs back then. I think everyone agrees on that. I think that recently, as far as fun goes, these more Brood War-based or the 20-year anniversary of the Holiday Bash, ridiculous because they bring back all the feelings of the old days. With that LAN atmosphere, and those are great. But for actual events, I have 1 or 2 I want to mention. What year was this? It was it was DreamHack Run, where Stefano won in the finals, that European Championship event.
Yeah.
And that was
that's Sweden.
Was that 2012 or 2013?
I think
it was in Sweden. Yeah, I believe it was 2012. Anyways, that event in particular, and I think that everyone that actually took that event, generally all of us consider it to be the best event that we've ever done. Whenever anything comes up, like I know I saw when everyone was doing hashtag SC20 or whatever, and given their memories, just about everyone that was at that event working mentioned that event, because that was like a very, very special one, I think, for a lot of reasons. We had worked up to it with the most gigantic set of national qualifiers ever done, I think probably in any esport ever. Yeah. And I'm just going to say that without fact checking it, because I can't even imagine pulling that off.
We don't fact check on the show, Dan.
No, we don't need that. No. We are the facts.
That's right.
So like that kind of like added to the storyline a lot, because we had all these different players from all these different countries, and then like the gameplay was out of control good. This was definitely, Koreans were too dominant compared to non-Koreans, and that would mess up the tournaments somewhat, right? Because the Koreans would come in and just win everything. But here it was like all the top European players, so it was like very close. You didn't really know who was going to win. Obviously, like Stefan's favorite there and stuff, but we had like all these amazing storylines coming up. Grubby, probably his best overall StarCraft 2 tournament ever. We had the really cool story of Lowly coming up, and we had, Vortex doing really well. Stefano winning at the end in Stefano style, walking out in his socks with a flag, and like the production at that event. I'm getting chills actually just talking about this right now. Wow. The production at that event was out of control. It was so good looking. Just everything about it. It was just like this magical event, and I'm sure there's things about it that I don't even realize why it made everyone feel this way, but it definitely did, and it was like one of those events that I just always think back to.
For me, it's not even like, it is an event, but it's, I guess, a story I don't tell that much. But one of my favorite trips and things I was ever a part of actually was, God, I can't remember what year it was. Maybe Dan remembers actually, but it was when I went out to Korea and stayed with you and your lovely wife and Greg. Both these pairs or groups I stayed with, and then I competed in the GSL qualifier. But that was my first real, not my first, but it was my real experience in Korea, where I went out and walked around the city. We did some late night stuff. We just hung out and had a really cool time. And then I had an actual, it's kind of famous that I've never actually really gotten results in StarCraft 2, but this was one of the tournaments where things kind of clicked, and I actually made it within one map of qualifying for the GSL and lost very narrowly in a cool, awesome series. And then from there, I played on the ladder and had a really good time and hung out with Dan. But it was like kind of similar to what Katz just said. It's not even a production or a particular moment in time where I won money or anything like that. It was more just like the atmosphere of hanging out with Dan and his wife, and then going over to Greg's apartment, hanging out with him, and just all we did was play StarCraft. That's actually all we really did. And if we weren't doing that, I was walking around Seoul and seeing stuff and taking the subway to travel. And these guys took really good care of me. But it was just like, it's one of those trips that I'll always remember, because it was because Korea is a little bit the mecca for StarCraft people. Like if you go there, you're not just like, it's Seoul, I'm gonna check it out. I've heard they've got fantastic barbecue or whatever. You're more there. You're like, you're there to pay homage and to see stuff, and of course they have great food and stuff. So that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was a fun time. It was on that trip watching you play Protoss that I decided to switch.
Yeah, I like. We have another question from a Patreon, and this is one of those this is one of my favorite ones. Given the incoming Terran changes, which were almost exclusive changes for TVP, does anyone have any fears that will negatively impact TVZ, especially considering some top Korean Zergs have started voicing TVZ balance concerns? Is this just a meta shift Zergs need to figure out?
Okay. I think actually these changes, like the Marauder change, helps out a lot against Protoss, but I think that the Raven nerf to the anti-armor missile is more of a nod towards ZVT, to be honest, and I think it will help the Zerg players quite a bit. Instead of their entire army just dying to 5 missiles, it's going to take 6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, this opens up the Raven harass a little bit more with like the auto turret stuff that we saw, which I still don't think is bad because the impact of the anti-armor missile itself has shown to have, even if you just get one off into the center mass, it is huge. It is a very good spell still in the game. Even if it didn't do damage, just that -3 armor across such a huge AoE is awesome. But as far as affecting TVZ goes, I think the Marauder change is going to be big. I think it's going to be a lot easier when you're only able to crank out a couple of Marauders when you see something is coming. It's going to help a lot. A big thing that people talked about when Legacy of the Void came up, when Roach Ravager was still being figured out, was how difficult it was to deal with those compositions, because you build Marauders to help deal with the Roaches, but then the Ravagers aren't counted as armored. So with their base armor, Marauders actually kind of sucked against them in a weird way, and they're going to be substantially better after this patch too. So it's just a good buff across the board. Like, that upgrade difference for the Marauders is huge. And they're going to go back to being the very scary anti-armor units that we remember them as, versus units like Stalkers and Roaches and Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm.
So for the changes, I was a big proponent of the Raven doing the slow missile that I mentioned. I really try to push for that, because I think it encourages far more micro on both ends, and that's really fun to see. It's really fun. It's really exciting for the audience, right? Because you don't know what it's gonna hit, and maybe up the damage instead. Just to make it so that it's not useless. Instead, they just reduce the damage, which I think is the safer way to go about it if you think something is broken, right? Rather than going for design change. I don't know how much that affects TVZ. I think that it's a good disengaging tool, or like to force disengages, and that can cost a lot if the Terran has like a siege line, tank siege line, right? Because Zerg engages into that, you throw the missile. If they retreat, they're gonna lose a lot of units in the process of retreating. The Raven though is whatever. I just wish they had gone for the other change, and I didn't touch on that earlier. The Marauder, I think it kind of can be annoying, because even though Zerg versus Terran right now, it's mostly circling Hydra Baneling, right? I would say. Mutas don't see much play because of the Thor AoE, primarily anyway. And now Roaches are gonna face the Marauder, so now Zerg is kind of, from my perspective, sort of stuck on that. And whenever Blizzard decides, well, we don't want it to be Hydra Link Bane anymore all the time, and a lot of people considered Heart of the Swarm prior to Broodlord Infestor towards the end, where it was just Muta Link Bane versus Bio to be one of the most fun, and I include myself in that, to watch. I think TVC was the most fun when it was that Bio versus Muta Link Bane. And that's, I don't know, I just feel like it cuts down the options to just restrain it to the composition that's now primarily what we see. But that just makes it a little bit boring for me.
Okay. Nice. Cats, well, I got you. Gemini19 asks, could you share your thoughts on what the pros and cons are of signing foreign versus Korean players on your team? Since you've done both with the way the Korean scene is now with many teamless Koreans, I'm curious what it's like as a team owner who has the foreigner and Korean. It's a better question than what I had there before. I don't know why I added that part. I didn't see his other question. But what do you think about signing Koreans or foreigners?
It's just about who we want to support, who I believe in. I want the Root to stay relevant as a strong team, and for that reason, sometimes it's better to sign Koreans. And also, I try to fill in gaps, right? So when Kespa disappears, and the popular opinion is that Koreans are getting fucked all over the place, I'm like, hey, like let's help them out, right? Like let's try to get a few Koreans, or at least one of the better Koreans, and try to house them. So that's kind of the thought process. It's one, Root staying relevant as far as like the strength of the team, and two, just supporting whoever needs it the most. And before that, and before the Kespa thing, that was primarily foreigners, I think. So we had Koreans whenever they would be willing to move and contribute to the foreigner ecosystem. Now it feels like Korea is the weakest ecosystem, so I don't mind investing in that. Again, like none of this brings me any return of investment, so it's just the feels.
Okay. A couple more questions here, and I'm going to start with you, Nate. A little bit similar to the earlier one, but maybe you can take a different take on it. What was your favorite tournament to cast or play in, and why?
This is, I guess I could answer both of those questions. I started getting heat for this one.
Ooh.
because
the best
I always
question.
go back. Well, no, it's because I always somebody asked me this. I think Kibbles asked me this during like TESPA Collegiate Series because of SC20. But I always go back to my first tournament. I don't really care about like as far as all the drama and shit that ended up happening with life. You know, I always give the same answer. Like fuck it. That my first big tournament doing that. I always go back to that. That show versus life series was awesome to cast. A few things that made me feel more alive than how excited and pumped up the crowd was during that match, during the following match with Jaedong and Stardust in the finals. That tournament, that semifinal and final, let's just like pretend that the Stardust versus show match never happened. That was, to me, that was still the greatest. Like I've never had a moment casting that felt as good as that. Like the way that those games played out, they were so back and forth. The base trades with Jaedong, like the probes around the extractor, everything. Like that's always my go-to answer. That was definitely the most fun. And then probably my first time playing at an MLG, even though this was like, I was like Diamond League. I played some guy who Thor rushed me and he beat me in the first game, and then I won the next two, and I was like, he rushed me both the next two games. He was like some VVV clan person, and his whole family was like standing behind him with a bunch of clanmates, and I'm just there by myself with like my headband on, and like Panic Switched is behind me, like, you go, Nate, and I'm like, everybody cheered so loud when this kid took his first map off me, and then I finally beat him, and then, you know, TLO put 10 Niduses in my base, and that was, those two, those are very special memories. Those are very, very special memories to me. So that was, that's my answer.
Cats?
Favorite tournament that I've played in, was it?
Yeah. Or in cast, if you want to take that as well.
I really enjoyed casting with Destiny, actually. The Game On Invitational that we did, that was just really chill and really fun. And lately, the WCS and TESPA cast that I did, I feel like I improved a lot through it. And towards the end, I had a blast casting with Nate and Ravi, as well as Kibbles, actually. So I would say that for casting. As far as playing, just the early MLGs. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care about like how well I did because I didn't do good at all. But like in Control here is a top 4 MLG finisher for those of you who don't know.
You gotta get one.
Yeah, I was more of a top 16, top 8 once in a while, but just playing in those was really fun. Just seeing everyone for the first time, just meeting people that I've been talking to for so long, and that was it.
Historic Dan. You got a lot of games casted and played.
Well, I think all the old WCG tournaments were pretty awesome. I don't want to like choose one over the others currently, but I guess like more recently for tournaments played, I enjoyed very much the launch event for StarCraft Remastered. Like just the plane flight there, I was like almost in like ecstasy the whole time because I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to play a Brood War tournament. This is so crazy. And that was just like a lot of fun seeing so many old friends I hadn't seen in a long time, and kind of gave me that land feel again that we've talked about several times. So for playing, I'll just go with that one for as far as recent goes. For casting, I mean, obviously that one in Sweden was really big. I generally really like BlizzCon as well, and I mean, the thing is, I really like casting almost every event. I enjoy casting. There have been very few where I'm like, oh fuck that event, that was terrible. I don't know. I like to travel outside of my normal thing, right? Like I take the train up every day to GSL, and that's fun, and I enjoy it, and it's a great job. But I guess there's something about getting on an airplane and going to cast a big event like a World Championship BlizzCon thing that's super special, super fun.
Nice. I like it. That was a good question. Thank you guys. For me personally, I guess I actually I'm in hoster mode, so you'd think I'd have the best answer because I was thinking the whole time. I wasn't. I was making sure the show doesn't fall apart a little bit. Casting, it's kind of a lame answer, but I think I have the most fun and it's interesting at Home Story Cup. Actually, you know what? One of the answers I would give, because we're not doing like the best ever. I can't. It would take some time to think about. But the one time I did that tournament with Too Good was actually some of the. It was one of the only times in my entire life where I realized I was being out trolled. Like this guy is funnier than I am. Everything I say, he handles it better. He's wittier. I was like, I had mad respect for Too Good because, you know, I'm still, as much as I've said and done weird stuff on air, James has no actual limit. So there was a couple times where, and if you like watch the video, you can see it happen on my face, where I'm like, something back at you, and he's like, "Yep, well, you can't die from cock, Jeff." As he's like segueing the commercial, and I'm like, it's not even comprehensible to me that someone can say something like that. So it's just annihilating me inside my brain, but I'm trying to like hold it together.
That shit was funny.
All of it. James is one of my favorite people in all of esports. I'm sad we don't get to see him as much, but brilliant mind, really funny guy, and that was just such an amazing event. That whole thing, actually, by the way, Semmler, Apollo, Adabisi, all those guys, that whole setup they had, that was such a fun show. It was such a chill group of guys. They did it was a fun time in StarCraft, because that was, and this is going to have a weird vibe to it, because some people are going to take this the wrong way, but back then, there was gigantic swaths of cash flying around. There's people investing in high production shows, and like, you know, the good studio started off with StarCraft for the most part. It then branched off, and now a lot of those guys are doing incredible things. Like Semmler is one of the premier commentators from CSGO, now doing Overwatch League. Wepes and I'm actually blanking on some names. I feel terrible because they're friends of mine, but those guys are the observers of Dota 2. And James is like making his own game. It's kind of crazy where these guys went with this stuff.
Yeah,
that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Similar, even prior to that, he was just doing like interviews and shit like that for events, you know, of the players. Like,
yes, Cats, but the Semmler story is actually so incredible, and it's one of those things where like, because now when you see Semmler, he's like this posh professional experience. He's that guy that's got like hookah shells and like 7 bracelets on his one wrist. That's like this beautiful like French model wrist type guy. The fucking Semmler that I know slept in a sleeping bag in the office because they just didn't give him anything else. And he eventually graduated to a garage floor that he slept on.
Yeah.
And some of our most famous moments was triggering the shit out of him live on stream because he's like into this girl. So we're like, let's call up this girl. And he'd be like, fuck, no, don't fucking call her. James like, yo, hey, Semmler likes you. And Semmler's in the background like, you fucking dick, I hate you. And then he like grabbed the phone and it was like, not you, you're cool. And yeah, do you want to go out like Friday or something? It was like some of the best moments, but that was the good studio.
Good studio.
I actually had the chance to go out with Semmler and the Overwatch League guys like for drinks maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the guy is just, he has this aura where it's like, he feels like such a fucking nice guy, you know? But at the same time, he's evolved into an extremely confident man. Mm-hmm. It's just a weird. He's just dressed up all weird and he's so welcoming, like the way that he talks. But at the same time, yeah, he's a great guy.
He's a good guy. All my good studio trips were a 2-parter. I went there and had fun, and then I came back and had a meeting scheduled with Alex Garfield to talk about my fines and what I did wrong the entire time I was there. That was my trip every time. And one of my favorites was I'm like on the show with him and we were having rum and cokes. And this is, you can't write that, you can't make this shit up. I get, you know, my phone goes like, and I'm like, oh, I got an email. Alex Garfield. What is that you're drinking? I'm like, this fucking guy. And I'm like, right? It's a Coke and rum, dude. Don't worry. And this is when we're sponsored by Monster. I'm like, the glass has no markings on it. He's like, you can't drink Coke on stream. And I was in trouble. But literally, I fucking kid you not, like 3 days later, Coke bought Monster. Guess who? Guess what?
That's because of you.
Okay to drink. Yeah, exactly. I did it. Me and the Mormons. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, that was a funny timeline. But that's gonna do it for the questions for now. If you guys have more questions, just put them in there. I just kind of parse through it. I will give this moment to just kind of say, if you're asking questions like last week we got asked like, how is it dating in the scene? Dan and I are married and Zombie Grub doesn't want to talk about her dating life. Those kind of questions I'd shy away from. In this one we had questions like, what do you think about balance? Anything that starts with balance, just go ahead and chuck it. Just chuck it right over your shoulder. It's so stupid. It's like, if something got changed, we'll talk about it. But the idea of like, what do you know? There's EVT these days, am I right? Like, nah, let's not do it. But go ahead and check that out. So in wrapping up, guys, just want to give a big shout out to everyone and thank you guys for tuning in. It's been awesome. This is 5 weeks in a row, and we've gotten really great feedback. Thank you to Nate and Katz for coming on. You guys really appreciate that.
Thank you.
We'll do our shout out thing in a second. But I do want to say we did launch our Patreon, and I think Cobra is right about to... There it is. That's the sound effect for it. These are the guys that have done $10 or higher to support us. A lot of these names are very familiar to me. Thank you guys so much. We actually cannot do content like this without that kind of support. So we don't really have a number or something like that we're saying. Perhaps if we were more, only about that, then we would. But for right now, we just want to leave it at please do support us if you can. In the future, and I feel so funny saying this every time, but our aim is to pay our guests in the future. We'll have you back on, Nate Chaos.
Is it though?
One day.
I'm waiting for the bubble guests where we didn't pay you, and then the next guest gets paid, and that guest will be like, "What the fuck?" But
as long as you guys strive to stay relevant, I'm sure.
That is tough, man. I don't know, man.
That throwback. So shout out to these guys. Thank you so much. And if you have the means and the inclination, please do consider it. We also have some other projects that we'll be finalizing and getting to you guys soon. So let us know. But without further ado, I want to give again a shout out to these guys. Follow them. Check out their streams. Nate, what are you up to? Where can people check you out? What are you doing?
Yeah, still streaming a lot. My Twitch is listed there, Nathanias. I'm doing WCS Challenger Finals for Europe and NA. That's going to be, Europe will be on Saturday morning, very early American time. I think just afternoon Europe. And then I think we start a little bit later on Sunday where we're going to do the NA Finals, which, at least it'll be fun. It should be fun to watch those games. Yeah, but other than that, I'm just going to get back. Yeah, just going to get back. Well, I'm not going to claim that the NA games will be as good as the EU games. But then be in Austin next month. That'll be fun. That's first 3 days of June. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming up.
Very, very cool. So make sure and follow him. Nate has a cute Twitter, I would say. I'd say it's a cute Twitter.
It's cute.
A great stream, great community. Katz, what can people do to find out more about you? What are you doing?
I'm just mostly streaming. I think I'm gonna try to do a run to get top 16 on NA. I haven't been decent at the game for a while, so I want to do that before June ends. Hopefully, that's my goal right now as far as StarCraft is concerned. I also stream other games, Dota, Hearthstone, other things pretty regularly actually. You can find me on Twitter at RootCats. My stream is twitch.tv/RootCats. My team is at Root4Root on Twitter, and that's pretty much it for me. Yeah. I'll be moving at the end of the month, just within the area. I was considering going back to Peru, but now that's off the table for people that knew about that. So I'll just stick around.
Okay, very good. Dan, what are you up to?
The same old, just streaming a little bit, doing ASL tonight at 7 p.m. KST. That's a round of 4 match, PvP best of 5. That'll be great. Saturday is the last group of GSL round of 32. It has Dark and Innovation. That's 1 p.m. KST. Make sure you check that one out. And then Sunday is the third place match. Will be the loser of tonight against Hero. Epic best of 5 ZDP in StarCraft 1. And that'll be 7 p.m. KST. So that's another one. And then we did it this week, Jeff. The media team practice session. Yeah. Thought it was really fun. I hope you enjoyed as well. So basically all the media guys we can get together. We're practicing some StarCraft 1 in the morning. Well, my morning, 9:30 a.m. That would be Sunday night for people in America, I guess. On Monday for me, though. And so, yeah, you can check that out. I'll be streaming some tomorrow as well. So
very good.
That's about it.
Make sure and support these guys. Click follow on the channel. Rifkin was kind enough to post in the content creators part of Discord to show me what we were talking about. So there's the link to it. It's actually a thing done through Matcherino. Maybe you'll hear more about that in the future. I don't know. Where you can buy portraits of Maynard, Rifkin, and the other casters of that event. And it's, I think it's only $5, and 50% of that goes to the prize pool. But you're talking about supporting some pretty great stuff there. It's they're doing great stuff. They're making content. They're putting on shows for these pro gamers. So if you're loving StarCraft 2 content, this is one of the ways you can give back. Even if you just click it and check it out and retweet it or whatever. Just it doesn't have to be that you spend money, but that's part of it. shout out to those guys. That's it. As far as like house for the next episode, I'm gonna be gone this next week. I don't even think I told Dan yet. Maybe I told him. So
I didn't know, but that's okay.
There you go. I did post in the Discord. I just didn't tell you intimately. But I'm gonna be gone next week. I'm heading off to England to do battle in Warhammer 40K at a very, very big event. Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
You can do it. Can you win?
Yeah.
Like, should we tune in to like support you, or are you gonna go out in the?
Yeah. I mean, I have a good show.
I will watch the stream of you playing on YouTube.
There'll be some streams. There'll be some stuff. So that's where I'll be. And that actually might take me out. I can't remember my return flight, but in any case, there still will be a show. Artos is willing, but Cobra's got the technology and the ability to do it. We plan on keep going. And other than that, we have a couple of things. This is an announcement. You guys love it every time I do this, but I'm talking with a couple of guys to possibly sponsor the show. When that gets finished, we'll talk about that. I don't want to take any more of these guys' time. The show will be, as every week, by the way, every week, it'll be up on YouTube, Artos TV, almost immediately after. It is on iTunes. We're going to be partnered or something with Spotify soon. We're putting it out there.
Nice.
Eat the Kool-Aid, drink the content. You know what I mean. That's it. All right. See you guys. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.